Hello, welcome to listen to this webinar. We have a topic of cybersecurity playbook being broken for mid-sized companies. I'm Suvi Silvanto, I'm from WithSecure Product Marketing, and we are today going to explore some feelings that mid-market companies have towards cybersecurity, what sort of challenges they have, and what sort of shift they have in front of them. Let's first explore some trends we have in cybersecurity overall. Here is a good picture from World Economic Forum. It's updated every year. And from last year, we can see that the complexity is increasing in cybersecurity. First of all, cybercrime is being more and more sophisticated. So all the threats, they are being very complex. Criminals are using multiple tactics, and of course they are empowered by AI and other advanced tools. AI and other advanced tools are also the topic of mid-sized companies and companies overall, so we are adding tools in our companies to make it efficient and effective in all processes we do. That is also increasing the complexity in cybersecurity. What else do security officers have in their hands as challenges? So here in the picture, we can also see that regulation is becoming more and more demanding. So you need to actually meet many regulations locally and then regionally as well. And no company is acting alone. So we are all part of supply chains. So there are demands coming from your customers or from your supply vendors. At the same time, cyber skills has been a topic for years. It's still remaining as a trend. So this is a challenge. How do we have people with the right skill set tackling the ever complexifying environments? And perhaps last year, something that was added to the trends is the geopolitical turbulence and changes we have. This is, of course, another requirement. How can you make sure that the security you have in place is compliant? And how can you make sure that your data is secure locally? So those were some of the trends, and here, let's stop here for a while. So this is an interesting picture from the same report. So small organizations feel they have quite insufficient resilience when it comes to cybersecurity. You can see that their feelings around the insufficiency have increased quite tremendously during the past 3 years. Whereas large companies, they're doing actually quite okay when you look at this picture. So they are feeling more confident all the time. Why is this? Why is there such a gap between small and large companies? One reason is actually that large companies have had the time, the teams, the competencies, the skills, the right tools, and processes in place for quite some time. And they've been able to add things on top. So even if they have quite complex environments, they have had the capabilities. Whereas perhaps the smaller organizations haven't really found a viable solution for them that works both for their expanding environment, but also for their budget. So this dilemma we are tackling in this presentation today a little bit further as we go. Cyber criminals, on the other hand, they don't feel insufficient. They are actually feeling quite confident. Why is this? Of course, it's very much to do with the fact that they have very efficient tooling in place these days. and they can simply utilize AI, and they are very creative in using that. It makes them fast. It makes them fast, and it gives them multiple tactics. We are perhaps used to, in companies, we are used to giving advice and receiving advice that don't click this suspicious email or URL, or don't do this and that. But the world is not as simple anymore, because these criminals are scanning through the entire internet to find vulnerabilities, exposures, misconfigurations that companies simply leave behind. They are not only interested in big enterprises. Actually, on the quite the contrary, actually, they are interested in companies to whom they can attack easily. Small and mid-sized companies are quite attractive in this sense. The criminals know they don't have all these controls in place, and they can find those exposures. So world has changed in that matter. So no wonder the smaller companies, as you saw in the previous figure, feel insufficient resilience. Further on this topic, so here we can see that the capability demand for the capability and maturity in cybersecurity has also increased, both for small and large companies. So this kind of essential security level is higher. It means that for any company, something like endpoint protection is no longer enough. It simply isn't enough, because the environments, the IT estates you have are just expanding, and you have hybrid environments and cloud and perhaps some legacy systems in place. So it's no longer enough that you have only some security controls for your devices, for instance. Identity is becoming the number one entrance to your company, for instance. So the security level and the demand is increasing. And here we can see that perhaps the large companies can actually answer to this with their capability, but the smaller you are missing some controls and some security measures. Why does this matter, though? It matters because if we think about European-wide, 80% of the companies are SMBs, actually. So it's a very big impact. If we have these companies with low confidence, it's actually a big problem that we all need to solve. Well, best practices in cybersecurity and reality are not always matching. And I've collected here on the page some examples. 4 examples, in fact. We don't need to go through all of them, but let's capture maybe the first one and the last one here. So if we think about small and mid-sized companies, they are being bombarded of all kinds of security measures, and buy this tool and find this new capability, and this is a must-do this year. For instance, this zero trust that we have as an example on the first row, it's a very good best practice, in fact. It's very good program. But oftentimes it's unreachable for SMBs. It's quite demanding program to actually build for your company. It's built for big enterprises in the first place. Whereas reality in SMBs is that only 35% of them have MFA, so multi-factor authentication in place. Think about it. If this is where the reality is, and we're trying to push zero trust. So maybe somewhere in between is actually the right maturity for them to cover most. Then if we look at the last one from here, security testing, it's very important to check and test that you have the right level of security in place, everything works. This you could be doing with some breach and attack simulations, some red team exercises, and you should, and big companies are doing regularly. this is just quite unreachable for small companies. It requires resources and an investment to do, whereas they could easily have a continuous exposure management tooling in place, doing it for them all the time and giving them automatically what is the major issue you have, what you should fix next. So these kind of best practices and reality check is very much what is needed for the mid-sized companies. And oftentimes the maturity and reality is somewhere in between the best practice there is in the industry and what the company actually needs. Next section in this presentation, we are going to actually look at some insights that we have gathered with Security together with Forrester did a survey some time ago, and we interviewed more than 400 decision makers from European mid-sized companies and what they really feel about cybersecurity at the moment and what they view as challenges and next steps. First, customer quote, probably not a big surprise to anybody. It's around trust, and security is a trust enabler, says this CISO from Germany. We want to maintain trust. It sounds very common, and of course you need to have trust in your business, right? But here actually it's becoming more and more important and something that you need to transparently show. So security means trust, but it's not only like a trust feeling, but it's something that customers demand you to show. How are you taking care of your cybersecurity in your company? Might a customer ask you. What do you answer? Can you show them? Can you put it in your tender? Can you put it in your agreement? Not just that you are compliant, but that you have 24/7 monitoring in place, for instance. Those are becoming requirements of trust. So security has a real business impact, and this was one that actually came through in the survey. And for us, that's really good to hear and see that this is how companies are starting to see that cybersecurity is not just risk mitigation, but it can actually bring value in different ways. Here we can see some examples that brings value with the kind of data integrity, for instance, but also in a way of efficiency improvements. When you are building your digital services and digital environments, security can bring this kind of effective part as well, efficiency part, but also innovativeness. So you can perhaps create even something new for your services. And here is the last point. We can see that it could even be a strategic differentiator. In some cases, you could even put it as your key selling point. So it really starts to have a bigger meaning, particularly if you're selling something that involves a digital service. We mentioned the geopolitical turbulence and changes that are happening. Through the survey already that was done some time ago, we already saw that there's a concern regarding data security, regarding compliance requirements. And evidently, we can see there's a European shift. When we look at in Europe, of course, there are regional-based shifts elsewhere as well. There is really a demand, a need to secure in Europe and to know how your data is protected within the boundaries. Then I think on our headline, we also mentioned proactiveness and proactive security is something that came through very much through this survey. And one conclusion is that old model fails. It fails to meet today's requirements. And with the old model, we mean reactiveness. We've had quite long time in place. Companies have been building controls, processes, and capabilities, what to do when an attack happens. So how do you try to first protect against it, of course, with multiple layers. But if something happens, then what can you do? Things that make it visible. Where is it impacting in our systems? And how to respond it, how to mitigate it, how to respond it, and how to recover from it. That has been very much the old model and very much still needed. The speed in this reactive side is of essence these days. And we can see from the number here, 63% have experienced a breach within 12 months. That's quite a high number, in fact. So really very much wish that they have had good controls on the reactive side. However, in the future, when threats are evolving, as we saw in the beginning, and how the criminals are acting, criminals are having their own organizations. They are very industrialized, utilizing the latest tools, and it makes them super fast. First of all, they are able to find those holes, how they can access, and then they have very, very skilled and fast methods. So the reactive side no longer is enough. And that's why companies are already shifting and really need to shift towards the proactive measures. What does it then mean? In a very, very simple way, it means that you're able to discover the whole environment you have, whether it's legacy systems, devices, networks, your external exposures over the internet, all environments where you are able to discover all the exposures or vulnerabilities or things you need to fix so that nobody can access to your data and to your company. And then you can act fast and fix problems there. That's what it in a very simple way means. That's where companies should move. One reason behind this is not just the criminals who were becoming very skilled and fast, but also the companies themselves are just having more and more complex environments in their hands to manage. So the work that CISOs have these days is quite complex, actually. And in this survey, 53% of the interviewees say that it's too large to manage already. And they realize it. They cannot really guarantee that they know every single system and software and architecture they have in place. More entry points and more blind spots, it means. Here one quote from a customer. So if you don't know your posture or your exposures, how can you prioritize what to do? Well, this is very simple and it makes the CISO's work very difficult. What should I tackle next, actually? What is the next big thing that matters to my company? Where should I take my company towards next? So a new security mandate is needed. Proactive, integrated, and resilient. Thank goodness many companies are already realizing this, because the mindset change is the first thing that needs to happen, so that you're aware that you need to move towards this and you simply cannot just bear the risks anymore. That's very important. 74% are aware already. But what to do next? Now let's come back to how the small and mid-size companies are. They are quite overwhelmed by everything that industry is feeding to them, and they are quite under-resourced. Not just quite, they are very under-resourced, in fact, very much in pressure to what they should invest to. And then they are quite underserved sometimes as well. So big companies, they oftentimes get very much like personal service as well, and then small and mid-sized companies not so much. So that's quite a big dilemma. So what should they actually go after? And they need to find solutions that give them the enterprise grade security, but with the investment they can afford. So that's why it's really important that how they select the security solution and also the help they need for their company. Let's summarize a little bit. So moving from reactive to proactive is a must. And this simply means oftentimes that endpoint protection is not enough. You need visibility, you need detection and response that is fast. And then on top of that, you need to look for what you can do proactively. So how can you actually find out what to close in your environment, what to fix? And everything should be quite unified so you save time and you are very efficient in your security processes. Simplicity to manage. What we didn't talk so much about was the teams, and they are quite small. Oftentimes, small and mid-sized companies really don't have many security operators in place. They might have quite small IT teams in the first place. So partnering up, finding that partner who will help you to manage the security is quite essential. Partners that are also already there in the proactive mindset and with the right tooling for you. And then sovereign solutions or regional European solutions, for instance, make it easier to comply from the day one already. So that will also ease up the requirement here. And why now? We spoke in the beginning. It's a big transformation happening with a lot of regulatory pressure, a lot to do with AI as well, that we mentioned on the page here, and geopolitics happening. And then there's simply a paradigm shift happening in cybersecurity, which is a very good thing. It's better to be very proactive and know what you have and fix and make it very unattractive to those cyber criminals, that your company is not there first in their list. That's very important. And then when there are those enterprise optimized solutions, there's always good solutions for small and mid-sized companies as well. Rather use those, adopt those, and then adopt the security playbook, particularly for mid-sized companies. So perhaps it's time to rethink. Here are a couple of questions that one can always ask in a team meeting when the cybersecurity topics are there. So is the technology and services, for instance, European by design? Is the strategy towards truly resilience, or is it just kind of compliance, tick the box type of strategy that we are building? Do we actually have proactive approach? What makes our security plan a proactive? What should we do? Or are we still in this kind of, okay, what are we doing if a breach happens, if an attack happens? That's quite a big like mindset difference with those questions. So rather asking those. Why WithSecure? WithSecure overall is very much answering to the mid-market needs. So all the solutions WithSecure is providing are particularly designed for mid-sized businesses to help them overcome of this overwhelmed menu of different tooling and the scarce resourcing and the challenges that mid-market companies have. WithSecure solutions are also compliant from the day one, and they are very much proactive by design already. So it's easy to take them into use and answer to those questions previously. So WithSecure Elements is very much developed and serviced from Europe as well. So there is this European angle to it. Here we can see actually WithSecure Elements Cloud, the main solutions we have. Exposure management is something we talked and mentioned a little bit. Finding those exposures. Exposure management is very much what you can do to take your company to the proactive side of security. Prepare, having preparedness, having visibility to all of your attack service and finding the paths that criminals would use to enter to your company. You can make them very visible and tackle what is most important for your company. If should something happen though, then our extended detection and response Elements XDR is handling that. It has multiple protection levels and layers that are already preventing, but should something happen, then it's super fast to show it and to respond and tackle the problem. Our co-security services are sort of built on top, or kind of, they're the basis then to serve our customers with our partners, how you can really monitor the environment, not just when everybody's at the office, but 24/7 and ensure that when something happens, then that incident is taken care of in a speedy manner, and that the company learns from it and is better secured for the next times. So that's Elements Cloud, very much a unified solution, very much designed for mid-market. As mentioned, here is just in a summary the different phases we have in an attack. So first, it's of course about identifying as soon as we can where we have issues, but also building those protective layers with your cybersecurity solution. So Elements exposure management, then if something happens, extended detection and response will detect, will make it visible, and will help you to respond. As much as possible automated, but if human help is needed, it's there available as well to our experts. So WithSecure co-security services are kind of taking care that the whole 360, every phase is being supported. That's what the Elements is all about, helping you to reduce your risk and be prepared, be proactive. Are you ready to become proactive in cybersecurity? Here's our ask for you and our suggestion of what to do next. We did a kind of a assessment for you together with Forrester, and it's easy way for you to find out where you are becoming proactive. So do this and assess where you are. Thanks for listening today. It has been a pleasure. Thanks.